And if you're being challenged, bro, you just have to be on that hot seat too. All right. The next thing is, because I think that this is the biggest insult the person is taking from this. And it's weird to me. It's a weird insult. How is it an insult when I point out, because nobody knew, that was crazy to me. Nobody knew that I made the YAP gang model. Like, how am I wrong when I point that out? I don't get it. Only way I can feel like that you feel some type of way when I point that out is because you're championing it as if it's your own. As if it's your own creation. Right? Because I didn't really think nothing of it, right? Until a member, which I don't blame this member at all for going and sharing the model that I created with Nathaniel Jensen. Because he didn't know, but the way I feel about it is if he goes and publishes that and copyrights that and you shared it with him, where's my credit for the years of work I put into doing that, right? The years of work that I put into doing that. Like, you can go back to my Israel and Mesopotamia presentation, which was where the light went off at. And that's like 7 years ago. When I start thinking like, relative dating may be the best way to deal with the problems with exact dating and the biblical chronology. And that's what opened the doorway to more and more. And then I started studying the way secular scientists look at mythologies and stuff. And that's what helped to build the YAP gang model. But how is it an insult when I point that out? Like, no doubt, it's been filled out by many members of YAP gang, no doubt. No one can say that it hadn't been filled out by many members of YAP gang. But what's harder, to fill out the skeleton or to create it out of thin air for the model? It's hard to have nothing and come up with something than to have the basic outline and then just fill out the basic outline from there. And again, this is not to diminish any contribution from any member to that model and from any outside member who wants to contribute to the model. It's not to diminish the contribution. It's just to lay credit where credit's due. And I think like that became a big issue when I brought that out. Like, hold up, credit needs to be laid where credit's due, because this thing is getting put all out there as if, this was a compilation of it. No, I built that from the ground up, from scratch, with nothing to go off of but Genesis, the Table of Nations, and the scientific method. That was it. That's all I had to go off of. Genesis chapter 10 and the scientific method. And I created the whole YAP gang model out of that. The biggest hang up in the model was the DNA. Once the DNA hit the scene, start delving in the DNA, then that kind of filled out the model. For the longest, to be honest, the model was just up here. It was just in my head. And then I was pushed to go ahead and put the model out, to go ahead and lay it out for the people, because the person thought that it was a profound model, which I think that, I didn't think it was that profound at the time. But now that I look at it, look at it and its implications, it's like, that matter of fact, that is very profound, because it shows a lot. It gives credence to the biblical narrative. It's just not in a fundamentalist way. It's in a way that's more in line with modern science than to just be inherently against it due to lack of understanding, right? But yeah, I don't see how that should ever be an issue when I bring it up, because the group didn't know. You know, the group didn't know I made the model. So I thought because we got into an argument about some fundamental aspects of the model. And when the person was arguing it, I can tell that they didn't understand why that was there, right? So I gave them a couple articles pointing out, yeah, this is the article that's kind of fundamental here in the model that kind of puts, well, I won't say us, e-carriers in the Near East instead of in Northeast Africa, like they're saying. And so I gave him that. It was, I think it's the carrier, the basal L3 carriers paper. Yeah, I kind of point that out to him and showed him, like, yeah, this right here kind of lays out, you know, why I decided to go that path in creating the model. And they was like, oh, they didn't even know I made the model. And I was like, damn, how you didn't even know I made the model? You know what I'm saying? Like, how you didn't know that? We all in the group together. We talked for a time, like every day. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't get that, but it clearly was because, let's just say, nobody found reason to give credit where credit was due. Right? So then when I bring it up, and it's like everybody's kind of thrown back by it, like, oh, that was you. Now you have an issue. Now you want to shoot shots at me. Okay, cool. Oh, this is mine. All right, cool. Let's go to my playlist. All right, the one that say me on it. Okay. So let's go to my first video. And my first video pretty much is foundational stuff that's in the model. This is 7 years ago. All right. So when Jashu was still pushing BHI models and things like that, I was talking about this stuff 7 years ago. Right. So let's go into it. And this ain't me trying to down talk Jashu.
With that said, brother, I mean, if you have any questions you want to ask me or anything.
I was pretty much, well, to go back to the analogy he made, let's go with the analogy he made. It was like I gave him a stencil and pretty much said, draw. You know, no, that's not what happened. That would be a lie if anybody says I say that's what happened, right? It would be more like I equipped him with the capabilities to make the stencils. I handed him the crayons and let him build it all himself, right? So I was sliding him sources over the years. And my videos have a lot of sources and stuff I was just over the years. He was looking at it. He was fighting against it at first. And then through his own study, his own research, along with the sources I was giving him, you know, he ended up coming along, right? So again, 7 years ago, that's what I'm talking about. So let's go and see what I'm talking about.
All
7
right,
years
ladies
ago.
and gentlemen.
I don't remember. I don't think a YAP game even
like
existed.
We are live.
Ago,
Once again, I repeat. And the whole point of this presentation is the anthropological and archaeological evidence for the development and spread of civilization in order to give solid evidence for the spread of civilization from the Levant first, then into Mesopotamia, and finally into Egypt. All right, let's skip up because this is this video. But this is here we go. Where I get introduced to, hold on. This is where I got introduced to the idea of the Natufians from, right? It was actually Shaka Atmos. And no Israelite had a response for him. None. Remember this 7 years ago, not recently, 7 years ago. Nobody had a response for him. So that's what I typically did. I looked for stuff nobody had a response to, and I wanted to respond to that. So I made this video, right? So
I have to agree with him. We were not disappointed in Reggie because he lost the debate, because in fact, Reggie won that debate. He won the debate because the information was superior. What the information showed was that these people, who we call Canaanites, and a lot of people, like our brother here, want to call them Afro-Canaanites. The reality of the fact is that that region of the world that we call Canaan or the Levantine There was so much admixture that had taken place in that region before Egypt's first dynasty. There was so much in the proto-dynastic period. That whole area was, in many respects, it may have been African in some respects, but in many other respects, it was not. It had so much admixture. And all you have to do is go to the very early before the Natufians.
There you go.
Go to the Kerban and the Hanif period.
He's correct. Kerban, Hanif period. Going into that type of stuff. So I was responding to him and showing how if I go there and use all the antecedents, I can show how civilization actually started in the Near East. Because that was the debate in Kemet on trial. But because Israelites was just Bible, 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 you ain't really responding to people who come in with scholastic responses, right? So I was like, you know what? It's best to respond to them in what they asking for, right? That's the best way to go about responding to them, give them what they're asking for. So let's see some of the stuff I'm talking about, right? That's me, my icon. Everybody know me. Let's see. Look, I'm bringing up the fact of how the Cro-Magnon moving out this area, you know, coming into Israel and stuff like that, how what they were calling, because Dr. Lauren Brace said that the Natufians cranials look sub-Saharan African. So at that time, I wasn't just deep into the genetics, and they were saying that E1B1 was in the area. So if that's the ancestor to sub-Saharan Africans, E1B1A, then that made sense to me. So I'm not trying to make it seem like this is the infancy of the model, right? So it ain't like it's right and exact, right? But I'm showing that, yeah, there was some admixture, but that admixture didn't take place amongst certain peoples.
The next slide.
But let me skip the Neanderthal, Moshe.
Right.
I'm just skimming.
If we go,
I'm not trying to be all deep in detail.
Website right? Or something to go to.
Look,
show.
I'm going in depth about the Natufians.
But this was excavated by Lior Grossman.
Anybody can go back and see this. Global Media Inc. Israel and Mesopotamia, cradle of civilization and the father of Egypt. Anybody can go back and see this. In this video, I talk about the demic diffusion model, which has recently been brought up again. I lay out all the archaeological evidence that supports the model. The only thing that was missing was the genetic evidence that support the model. And my secondary issue with the video that they made on Vocab Malone's channel is that Orthodox Moore, after I've said it numerous times, wants to go on there and say, Jashub gave me the genetics and added it to the model. The final solidifying thing for a civilization is you had to have writing, right? And then in the secondary video, that's the one where I go in and start showing, okay, these Ibero-Maurutians coming into North Africa. You have the Gobero culture that stemmed off them, which was the first ones to start going down into the interiors of Africa. We haven't got any genetic information off of them. Was it Gobero or Kiffin? One of them. But we ain't got the genetic information off either one of them yet. So I don't know if that's what brought E1B1A into the Sahara or what, right? I don't have any genetic information to go off of with them. Been looking it up, couldn't find any. So I can't make a case for that. But the archaeology, I laid out the case for that. Talk about the Chickasees and all that other stuff that came into the region and stuff from there. The cattle, matter of fact, different things like that. And that I was laying out and showing in this video and part 2 of the same video on the same Global Media Inc. I'm not trying to make a long, extensive video all night on this, but I just want to point that out. The model that I presented on his channel was that we're going to go on mine, but he came to me and was like, bro, we need to put out this information to the people, bro. Come on, I want to put it out on my channel. I want to do this. I want to do that. I was going to do my own channel, but I had went to school. I had started going to school at the time. I worked 2 jobs already. And I raised my nephew, right? As a single parent. So I'm busy. So to me, I know my brother, right? He gonna champion this if he believes it's true. He gonna make video after video after video about it if he believes it's true. And and bruh, that's why I was like, yeah, let's put it on your channel, bro. That's why I decided, like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do it on your channel, bro. Let me go ahead and throw the presentation together I've been talking about for the longest to you about, and go ahead and do it on your channel. And I'll do it bit by bit and lay out all the evidence on why I come to this conclusions and why. The video I just showed about the Israel to Mesopotamia, that video was how I came to the conclusion that the issue in the creationist model that they trying to lay out and the secular model is the issue of time. And to me, it was such a petty thing that I thought I came up with something unique, right? I thought I came up with something very unique in coming up with the concept of relative dating, right? I didn't know anything about it. I just mentally came up with that concept because it was the only way I could make sense of it, right? That, okay, if the secular timeline is saying these events happened for thousands and thousands of years ago, the biblical timeline is filled with oral tradition, but it's saying that it happened in years and things like that. And also knowing that things like a mantra and different things were involved in the making of these ancient texts, it's like, well, it makes sense, right? Why they would do it that way, right? So anyway, back to this. So like I said, I'm already on it, laying the groundwork for this already. Archaeology, everything's been laid out, right? So we had 4 years ago with the shoot. Now let's go see what I'm doing 4 years ago with the Israel and Mesopotamia. Well, in my group, not in the Israel Mesopotamia, but in mine. Let's go right here on Maccabees TV. I was blessed for the brother, which was another thing that I had took issue with. I feel like a bridge was burnt here where we could have brought them along, right? I think that's without a doubt. A bridge was burnt here where Israelites could have been possibly brought along. I know it would have been a fight. I know it would have took time. Cause come on, like I was talking about stuff 7 years. Shub ain't come around to probably 3 years ago or so to really come around to it, right? Maybe a little bit earlier than that. Maybe it was about the 4-year mark when he with the Barren Strait stuff, to where he started coming around to it, right? So so this video is made 6 years ago, right? 6 years ago. Anybody can go into this video, Israelites in Nigeria and West Africa, and see where, again, I'm laying out the archaeological, historical groundwork to pretty much build, because the model was mainly to show not only the Israelite community that, you know, racism didn't make sense, that the Jews were a multi-ethnic people from its inception, not saying that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob didn't have a lineage that was the principal lineage within it, but from the moment they left in Egypt and became, well, before they even went up into Egypt, because they went into Egypt with servants, right? And them servants would eventually marry into your population because they would be the ones that keep your customs and your ways and so on and so forth, right? And then you would start spreading out and admixing with others. So from the foundation of the nation itself, it's a multi-ethnic nation.
We know now, I'll say after the fact, because I didn't know this at the point of making these videos, that Canaan itself was comprised of peoples that not all of them originate there from the very first foundations of the very first people. Some of them come from the Zagros Mountains region via Georgia, Russia, Georgia, Soviet Union, the country Georgia. Some of them come in by ways of, I say, Armenia and different stuff like that, from the Caucasus regions, from the Near East, from Africa. It was an area of influx and movement. And people warred over it for years. But you see this 6 years ago, as it says right there, biggest day, 6 years ago, I'm making this. Again, laying the groundwork. I'm laying the groundwork for the model in these things I'm making. And I'm showing them to you so y'all can go back and look at them. I had a debate right here that you can see. Do the African American descend from the ancient Israelites? Where I use DNA and everything in that debate to show it. So Orthodox Moore is saying he ain't seen it in public where this has been done. The first place has been put out in public with Bajashu. That's just bold-faced lie. It's 7 years worth of evidence of this model being laid out. Why? Because I came out and said what it was on Jashub's channel. That somehow makes it not my creation. I don't get that, because I directed Jashub towards articles and research to pull him out of BHI stuff, which was all about what the model came to be. All of the articles that I ever shared with him over the years was what the model would come to be, especially when it came to the genetic stuff, starting about 4 years ago. And his YouTube channel is an attestation to it. It just is. So again, and I just want y'all to think about this. The way it's being laid out is that, hey, man, the YAP gang we was together. It was us and blah, blah, blah. And we was over here doing this and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Right. Okay. Y'all who just came along 2 years ago, after we already laid out the model, I already said Avery was on his own stuff. He was already dealing with like 3-node concepts, different stuff from dealing with other people's stuff. But he wasn't on the model that I laid out, right? And that's the one that he was brought along to with his own disagreements, his own things that he brought to it. You know what I'm saying? He was already on the E stuff. Ain't nobody trying to take that from Avery. He was already looking at Natufians, but I was the Israelite that responded during the Kemet on trial period when they was coming and bringing up these peoples. You know what I'm saying? I was the one that went out responded 7 years ago with dealing with the Natufians, when no other Israelite could answer them. I was the one who did that. And that's just a chronological fact, right? And I laid out all the antecedents in those 2 videos that would go into the model. I reinforced the sub-Saharan African aspect of the model with my Jews in West Africa video, right? And then I had a debate before any of these models was laying out, where I brought the genetic aspects and laid it out on how the DNA proved that sub-Saharan Africans had something to say in this Israelite thing. Like, come on, bro. That deals directly with the antecedents to this art model. I'm laying it out. I'm laying out the demic diffusion model, even though I guess I can say in a way I was wrong if we really look at but the overall idea was right? The technicalities I laid out, some of them were wrong, need to be tweaked and peaked, but the overall idea was right. Laid out the demic diffusion model, right? I'm the one who brought that concept to them. Like most of the stuff to it. Like I said again, I'm not knocking that people have added on to it. You know what I'm saying? Have went and found other articles that would solidify it, right? That would bolster it, make it stronger. That can never be denied, right? So everything YAP Gang stands on comes from the mind of James Cassel. That is a fact. Come on. Like we just went over the years of when I'm already promoting the aspects of the model. Like I just don't like to promote the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, right? I like to always bring something new. I'm a creative. I'm not a promoter. I'm a creator, right? I create ideas for things. I come up with the means by which to flush it out and by which action can make it come true, right? That's what I do. But anyway, like I was saying, comes from my mind. Like I said, I laid it out to him. There is no YAP Gang without me. What is that saying? That's saying, bro, the ideas that end up bringing everybody together, which got Jashub to bring people along that were coming along already, right? People that's already promoting like ideas, right? Or things that are in the vein of the model, right? Bring them along, right? It was because I brought, like, Jashub brought him along. I brought Jashub along. And it wasn't no spoon feeding or nothing, as I went through before. He did his own research. The dude fought like hell against me on it, to the point he was making videos about it. So it ain't like he just bought it because I gave it to him, which is, for some reason, the way he keeps making it seem like I'm saying it about him. But I think me and him cleared that up today. There is no YAP Gang. Like I said, there is no model without me, and that's the facts. Because of the same reasons I just said. Now tell me where the lie is at. You can try and ride the model I single-handedly created all you want. Because if I'm giving Jashub sources that he would have to research himself, but already kind of telling him my conclusions from it, he going researching and seeing that my conclusions is in line with what it's saying, and then I'm taking these papers and piecing them together, the ideas with other papers, running it by him or putting it in my presentations, or you can see easily where the DNA fits into my presentations and stuff that I've been handling and stuff like that. How is it hard to come up with the same model? Of course it's going to be the same conclusion. That's why I always give him credit for coming to the conclusion, because I know he had to study to do it. Because I didn't give him enough to do it all. You know what I mean? Come on, man. And I highly doubt Avery stole anything from you or copied you. I never said he did. Not once. Not once. I believe he came along to it. Just like Jashub came along to it. Just like when me and him had the back and forth about the DE paper or the L3 paper. I think he came along to the DE aspect of it, because that was like the final straw. One of the final straws. I can't remember. It was one more article I needed with DNA to put the final niche on it. And I think it came in like 2018, 2019. And so, all right. So, and defended, or copied, I just think he came along to the model just like Jashub came along to the model. That he was searching, looking for a model, was looking through the evidence, never really found something that quite made sense to him. And then when he seen how the YAP Gang model was laid out, or what I was going to call it before it was the YAP Gang, was the Cassel biblical genetic model, was laid out, he took a liking to it. He saw it, he liked it, he started studying, and then he came to agreement with it. He has his own tweaks and peaks to it, no doubt about it. But I never said he stole or copied from me. You can't steal research. You can steal ideas, though, but you can't steal research itself, right? You can steal concepts that are unique, that brought forth the model, but you can't steal that. But I've never heard Ivri go deep in on any of those concepts before. I have no idea. Okay, and then I addressed the Ivri situation, right? I addressed the Ivri situation. Now I have no idea how Ivri got into this, or a claim he stole anything. LOL. So this is way back on the 9th. We had this discussion. Why are you on the 26th making the same argument that I've already said, bro? I didn't say that. But I did create the hypothesis, the methodology for testing the hypothesis, the proving it with specimens. Now that's 1,000% all the way me, done to the philosophical presuppositions of the model. Notice what I'm saying. From my discussions with Ivri, he was definitely already looking for models and had concepts of proto-Semitic peoples, etc. But he didn't have anything to the level of the model we use. He saw the logic in the model and came aboard through Jashub. I'm completely lost how this is become a thing. The only thing I've ever said in regards to Ivri was that he shared the model with Nathaniel Jensen, and I would like credit for what I put the work in for. That was it. Before he shares it with someone. He didn't know I made it, so no harm, no foul. Never held it against him. And I haven't. The only reason I bring it up is because, I ever bring it up is because I couldn't understand why that wouldn't be known. And I can't understand why they live now, making it like it's not the case. Let me share one more time and re-emphasize these one point, bro. I don't want this going no more. I don't want this going no more. We seen that I was making videos 6 years ago on the topic and stuff. Had other videos along, but they're not specifically on that topic, right? And most of my stuff is like features. Like I'll make the video here and then send it to someone else's channel, like that I do here. But most of the stuff on the YouTube channel was just live stuff we did. So it's different. But look, the earth existed before the sun 4 years ago, bro. 4 years ago. I'm already laying out the groundwork. And why is he doing this? In response to me pushing a model that Alvin Elmore brought me along with. It wasn't just me alone. Alvin Elmore was pushing it too, which was Hugh Ross's model for creation model, which I think makes more sense than anything. It's in alignment with the science. And if I was trying to make something about that, that would have probably been exactly what I created, right? But I think his idea of perception being over the waters of the deep, I don't think I would have came up with that. I think that was a unique aspect that he brought to it, right? So, and I think he gets credit for that. Like it'd be like me now coming along after looking into his sources. I'm talking about Dr. Hugh Ross sources, going into his sources, looking at his sources, finding other sources that concur with his sources, then coming out and saying that I created that, or that I was a part of his creation. No. Like Jashub can say that because he was instrumental in his creation. He was just on the wrong side of it. You know what I'm saying? He was the person who was contending against it. But look, dismantling the Barren Strait theory 4 years ago, he literally made this video as a response to me going at his 12 tribes chart. And I gave him DNA to do that. So how is Orthodox Moore saying the DNA from the model came from Jashub? It makes no sense. It makes none whatsoever. But Jashub wasn't there when he said it, so I can't say, hey, Jashub, why you let him say that? You know what I'm saying? He wasn't there. The commonality of sub-Saharan Africans and Native Americans. Come on, bro. This is still him responding to me giving him that DNA that blew up that 12 tribes chart a year later. Still on it. So this is only 3 years ago. Jashub is still pushing BHI rhetoric 3 years ago, bro. Come on, bro.
We go ahead and let James knock out his last in front of Ram. Are you ready, bro?
Yeah, just let me know what my screen sharing.
All right. It's not sharing yet. Try again.
Your time will start when you start talking. I'll put you going on your time, brother.
All right, it ain't a big deal. This last one ain't got many images to show, so I can just go through it without it. But this right here is where we bring it home at. All right. We're gonna bring it home in the third round with DNA. This is what the brother say he wanted, and that's what I'm gonna get a brother. DNA. Now my screen still gotta load up here, but while it's loading up, I'm gonna talk about some things that the brother went over. I agree with him. The techniques are different because when you amalgamate with people, you take the best of what you got and the best of what they got, and you mix it together and you come up with something new. That's what happens with amalgamation. His post-colonial artifacts he got from the garage sale don't mean nothing in this debate. I don't see why he went through showing all them like they were some ancient artifacts that was supposed to be in comparison with the two ancient artifacts I was showing. He got to understand. I can't show you everything about the culture. I got 15 minutes around. You know what I'm saying? I can't go through everything, but I'm gonna hit the key things that I think will make it good for the people to see and make it stand out. And I don't have to accept my ancestors' idolatry, even if they had something to do with making those things. If they're supposed to be worshipped as God, I don't have to accept that at all. I can learn to do better. That's what we're called to do better than our ancestors. And also amalgamation. I talked to him about there being 13 indigenous tribes before the Israelites even came there. So it is an amalgamation. The Israelites are the smallest amongst the population there. So I just really didn't get his argument. But on to the next source. This right here is from an article online. Anyone can look it up, and it says DNA. It says DNA says Jews are a race. It ain't no J marker either, but it say that Jews are a race. And I'm going to read this right here. Jews exhibit, he writes, a distinctive genetic signature. Considering that the Nazis tried to exterminate Jews based on their supposed racial distinctiveness, such a conclusion might be a cause for concern. But Oster says that as central to the Jewish identity, for most of the 3,000-year history of the Jewish people, the notion of what came to be known as Jewish exceptionalism was a hardly controversial. Because of our history of in-marriage and cultural isolation imposed and self-selected, Jews were considered by Gentiles and usually referred to them as a race. Scholars from Josephus to this Israeli proudly proclaim their membership in the tribe. All right. I'm gonna read this part right here. The same article, a people, a religion, or both. In Judaism, is Judaism a people or a religion or both? The belief that Jews may be psychologically and physically distinct remains a controversial fixture in the Gentile and Jewish consciousness. Oster places himself directly in the line of fire. He writes, the term race carries nefarious associations of inferiority and rank of people. Anything that marks Jews as essentially different runs a risk of stirring up either anti-Semitism or philo-Semitism. But that doesn't mean we can ignore the factual reality of what he calls the biological basis for Jewishness and Jewish genetics. Accordingly, the distinctiveness of Jews is fraught with peril. But we must grapple with the hard evidence of human differences if we seek to understand the new age of genetics. All right, this article I'm reading from is called Population Genetics Reveals Shared Ancestry. DNA links modern European Middle Easterners to sub-Saharan Africans. All right. In a paper titled The History of African Gene Flow into Southern European Levantines and Jews, published by Plus Genetics, Associate Professor of Genetics David Reich and his colleagues investigate the portion of sub-Saharan African ancestry present in various populations in Western Eurasia, defined as a geographic area spanning modern Europe and the Near East. While previous studies have established that such shared ancestry exists, they have not indicated to what degree or how far back the mixing of the populations can be traced. Analyzing publicly available genetic data from 40 population compromised North Africa, Middle Eastern, and Central Asians. Pretty much, let me get to the root of it. Morjani traced genetic ancestry with a method called roll-off. All right. Morjani used the technique to examine the genomes of modern West Eurasian populations and find signatures of sub-Saharan African ancestry. She did this by looking for chromosomal segments in Western Eurasian DNA that closely matched those of sub-Saharan Africans. By plotting the distribution of these segments and estimating their rate of genetic decay, Reich's labs was able to determine the portion of African genetic ancestry still present and to infer approximately when the West Eurasian and sub-Saharan African populations mixed. The genetic decay happens very slow. So today, thousands of years later, there is enough evidence for us to estimate the date of the population mixture. For example, the mixing of African and Southern European population coincides with the event of the Roman Empire and Arab migrations. The older mixture, which goes back to the Romano-British, the older mixture date among African and Jewish populations are consistent with the events. This is important. The events in biblical times, such as the Jewish diaspora that occurred in the 8th and 6th century BCE. This means right here in this article is telling you that the Jews that existed in pre-exilic Israel were admixed with sub-Saharan African ancestry. So can't nobody in here right now tell us that this article is wrong unless they're going to bring up an article that supersedes it, and one don't exist. I've looked. All right. It says Reich was surprised to see any level of shared ancestry between Ashkenazi and non-Ashkenazi Jews. I've never been convinced they were actually related to each other, Reich says, but now he concludes that his lab's findings have significant cultural and genetic implications. Population boundaries that many people think are impenetrable are in fact not that way. All right, this right here is called Genes Tell the Tale of Jewish Ties to Africa. This was published in Forward magazine by Gianna Palmer in August 2nd, 2011, talking about the same article. Now, a new scientific paper offers a genetic timeline that could support these biblical tales. The paper builds a new study published late last summer that were the first to use genome-wide analysis to trace the history of the Jewish people through DNA. It demonstrated that there was a biological basis for Jewishness, said Dr. Ostura, director of the Human Genetics Program at the New York University School of Medicine, who led this study. Among the findings, Ostura paper indicates that Jews have African ancestry. This is the least common denominator between all these Jewish populations, is sub-Saharan African ancestry, as observed that an observation that David Reich, associate professor at the genetics at Harvard Medical School, and his colleagues decided to further explore. Let me move forward here. Same stuff pretty much. All right, right here. This is the key thing. The first line here, right here under it says population in the first column. All right, we're gonna move over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns where it says West African ancestry proportion using structure. The first one there, it says African Americans. So this is talking about the proportion of DNA they're talking about that we have within ourselves as a whole. 77.2% of African Americans, which is 2/3, more than 2/3 of African Americans carry this DNA. So this is a direct genetic link to the pre-exilic Israelite. There's no way to get around that. But let's see, going into the actual article they were talking about, the history of African gene flow into Southern Europeans, Levant, and the Jews. And we see that they use HapMap3 for sub-Saharan African ancestors. That's Ibadan. That's in Nigeria, and it's the Yoruba of the Oyo state. That is where that DNA come from. So this brother can't never come on here and say that there ain't no genetic link. Can't nobody ever say to Israel again that we don't have a genetic link to our ancestors. They out they mind. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now because I'm done with my presentation.
All right, so let's get started on this. Oh no, can y'all see, by the way?
So before we start, state your claim, right? What are you proving?
All right, I was actually going to give my basically my grievances at the end, if that's good.
No, you need to state what your case is before you start. That's how any debate is. I'm here to prove X, Y, and Z.
Right, just like you did in the email. You said, here's the links to E1B1A. Here's the links to G, and this is my case.
Sure. Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. So basically, my case is that one, we should use haplogroups. The Israelite community should use haplogroups and autosomal. I'll say both. And another point is that we should look into haplogroup E and pretty much all haplogroups. We should look at everything, in this little presentation. It's not going to be very long. Explain the benefits to using haplogroups. And
okay, I'm sorry not to interrupt you, but before you argue the benefits of haplogroups, we want to understand what your argument is.
Correct. So what is the ultimate argument you're trying to make? So what are you trying to show to the community? Because I think it was a couple of conversations. So let's start with the initial conversation that you brought to the attention to the brothers.
Yeah, so you say we Japheth. Let's start there.
All right, so that's one thing that I want to correct, or actually here, I'm going to correct a few things that y'all said. For one, I have not been stalking y'all for years because, as you can see, this video, those 3 videos y'all made is only like a year long. A year ago.
Okay, sorry. For a year then.
So it hasn't even, those videos are back to back. So it's like I said a few things in the video. Like,
okay, so can you clearly state your case is that we're Japheth and you want to prove that we're Japheth, correct?
That's the second thing that I want to get to. I'm not saying that your autosomal is Japheth, even though I guess to a certain extent some of your autosomal is European, and that's Japheth. But I'm saying that your Y chromosome.
Okay,
chromosome is from Japheth, and I'm going to get into that in the presentation.
Okay, yeah, but what do you mean by that, right? When you state that haplogroup is Japheth, and what does that mean in the terms of genetics and identity?
Yeah, that's what I was going to get into in the presentation.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, give me a moment. Let me hold on. Give me a moment. All right. So can y'all see the screen? I want to make sure y'all can see on full screen.
Yes, I give you a full view of the screen. Here we go. Yeah, you can see it.
All right. So first we need to know what a haplogroup is. A haplogroup is a genetic population, a group of people who share a common ancestor on the paternal or maternal line. Paternal means father, maternal means mother. And this is from 23andMe, haplogroups explained. And I'm just going to read what's underlined in red. And so basically haplogroups explain, you can explain how knowing your haplogroups can place you in the human family tree and connect you to your ancestors. And here's a little example when it comes to using the daughter or the son, tracing all the way back to his father, then his grandfather, then his great-grandfather. And so this right here is from ancestryfindings.com. And I'm just going to read what's underlined in red. It says a haplogroup is an ancestral clan. Some clans are the Vikings, Native Americans, all tribes, Celts, Australian Aboriginals, and other such groups. Your haplogroup tells you where your ancestors came from deep back in time. And just to show you on the screen over here, basically, ancestral Eurasians tend to be, let's say, R1b of Western Europe. And then you have like Scandinavians and descendants, the ancestors of Germanic groups as haplogroup I1, Proto Europeans, and things of that nature. You also have haplogroup G2, West Caucasians, right there. So we'll go a little bit deeper. So basically, you can use haplogroups to trace certain clans and ethnic groups, like Indo-Europeans of the Slavic Turkic type are R1A. And then you have people like the Germanic tribes, Franks, Lombards, Vandals, Goths, Saxons, Anglo-Saxons, Germanic nations as R1B. And you can also have some haplogroup I. And you also have haplogroup I right here. The reason why haplogroup I, by the way, is separated like this is because of the 10 barbarian tribes that came into Europe and into Rome, if y'all remember that. In history, I remember y'all talking about that when it comes to the end times and all that. So that's why you see haplogroup I split, just a little history thing. All right, so all these haplogroups belong to specific ethnic groups, which is very interesting. For instance, haplogroup Q tends to be connected to, let's say, Native Americans and Central Asians. Haplogroup E is seen in Africa, West Asia, Southern Europeans. Haplogroup D is in the Far East, tends to be seen in people like the Japanese. And so all these, you can look up all these letters, these haplogroup letters, and they all belong to ethnic groups. And it's all directed back to a single line of people. And here's just another map showing the ethnic groups who tend to be connected to these haplogroups. Like A tends to be Khoisanes and Khoisanes and Pygmies, and of course, E is us, like Nigerians. You have Q with the Native Americans, Caucasians who tend to be F, G, H, I, J, K, L, T, and stuff of that nature. And here's a basic tree that anyone can look up when it comes to the world haplogroups. So the reason why I say we should look into haplogroups is because we have a particular haplogroup called haplogroup E-M2. E-M2 is primarily distributed in sub-Saharan Africa. It's in moderate frequencies in North Africa and the Middle East. E-M2 is specifically common in native African-speaking people such as the Niger Congo and the Bantu people because of the Bantu expansions. Here is actually a map of the distribution of haplogroup E1B1A, seen predominantly in Western Africa as well as in East Africa, right here in Zimbabwe, where the Limba are. And haplogroup E is at 100% to like 70% in most Niger Congo ethnic groups. Mendinke, 87% E1B1A. Bamalinke, 100% E1B1A. This is again why I say we should look into this, because it's significant when it comes to looking at ethnic groups. Haplogroup G is mostly seen and found in Georgia. It's at higher levels in places of the Caucasus. And it's believed that haplogroup G was originated in Eastern Anatolia, Armenia, and Western Iran. And haplogroup G2A is seen in the Neolithic remains of Europeans from 5000 to 3000 BCE. As a matter of fact, haplogroup G2A4 is seen in Ozzy, the Iceman, who was in Italy. So when it comes to modern frequencies of haplogroup G1, it's seen up to 71% in these Kazakhstan ethnic groups, and then 71% as well. And you see it also in Turkey, Southern Caucasus, and Iran at like various frequencies. In Southern Caucasus countries, 29% of the samples are in Abyssinia. And you also find in Georgia and Armenia, basically the Caucasus region. And in Europe, of course, it is seen in Ozzy the Iceman and his descendants who are in Western Austria at 40%. And in South Asia, it's seen at like 18 to 20%, stuff like that. So here's a map of haplogroup G1. It's seen in Kazakhstan, where it's highest, as you see in red, and in the Caucasus and in Iran. You see it's barely in Africa. It's like really not even there. So here's a map, E1B1A versus haplogroup G. So the reason why I like, and I think we should use haplogroup E1B1A is because the ancestor of haplogroup E1B1A is EP2. And this paternal clade has an ancient presence in the Middle East. That's connecting us to the Middle East, haplogroup EP2. So let's go a little bit deeper. It turns out that there was a people in the Levant called the Natufians who had haplogroup E1B1, which is the ancestor of E1B1A. Yeah, you see two different clades. You see the general E and then E1B1, which is our ancestor. And it's right there in Israel. This is why I think it's important to use. So the Natufians, if you don't know, they are believed to be the ancestors of modern Semitic-speaking populations in the Levant. This is the Natufian range. This is actually what a Natufian looks like. This is a Natufian from Jericho. And anthropologists have kind of always said that Natufians had a Negroid characteristic to their appearance. And it's even believed that they may, like I just said, that they're, like for instance, their nasal cavity is believed to be the representation of what the Semitic races would come into being, and that they were almost Negroid-like. This is why we need to look into these areas of the Levant, the Natufians, who are haplogroup E, and they are Semitic. Could these be our ancestors? I mean, I kind of think they are our ancestors. So here's another study. And by the way, y'all can always go back and look at the titles and type these in. The Y chromosome E haplogroups, their distribution in the origins of Afroasiatic and pastoralism. Haplogroup E originates with Afroasiatic people. What are Hebrews? Well, they're Afroasiatic. You can read more about this study, but basically says the Proto-Afroasiatic groups carrying the E-P2, which is, again, like I said, an ancestor to E1B1A mutation, may have already, at this point in time, let me skip on down. Well, I kind of already summed that up. Yeah,
hey, I'm giving everybody 5. I think you've done 3, so I'm gonna give you 2 more minutes to get.
Okay.
Yeah.
So E1B1B, it is believed that this is Proto-Semitic. You can go to this study as well and read this. E1B1 haplogroup E is Proto-Semitic, believed to have originated around the time of the late Copper Age and early Bronze Age. Again, this is why we need to use haplogroup E. It's literally proving that we're Semitic. And this is a book you can read. It talks about how Semitic languages come from the Afroasiatic branch. I connect this with the fact that E is also Afroasiatic. And here is a map that shows haplogroup E going into Africa, going into the Middle East, going a little bit into Europe, and going into Eastern Africa. And you can find this study whenever you like after this presentation. But basically, it says that the Levant populations were dominated by haplogroup E. And that's very important. And again, this is another study that goes into it. It talks about how Y chromosome E is in the Natufians and Levantine farmers. And by the way, just to connect us to Natufians, it's believed that it is a further surprise that the Natufians of Israel, from whom the Neolithic realm was assumed to arise, has a clear link to sub-Saharan Africa. And this whole study just goes into the fact that Niger-Congo people and Natufians are in fact connected. And so with all this being said, I do think that we need to use haplogroup E to prove, we can use it to prove our Semitic heritage through the Natufians, who are believed to be the ancestors of the modern Semitic people in the Levant. And what people don't know is that a lot of these Levantine Semites went into Africa, the Israelites as an example. And also you can go to this study. This study actually talks about the Israelites, and it says that the Israelites were haplogroup E. Again, this is why I want us to use it. This study says Israelites are haplogroup E, and they're also related to the Bedouins. And Bedouins, if you don't know, also have haplogroup E. There's actually like 3 different branches when it comes to Bedouins. Well, 4, right? Also Palestinians. So yeah, there are Semitic people with a haplogroup E. And here's just another branch that just shows everything. Go on to the next one. So haplogroup E1B1B.
I think you passed. Hold on 1 second. You passed 2 minutes. Go ahead and wrap it up. So, and I'm gonna allow Yakoba and Teo to make their rebuttals.
Well, here's the thing. The people understand haplogroup. They don't want a lesson in haplogroup 101, which is what you've been doing so far. What we need you to do is present your case, right? Your argument about us being Japhet, which is how this all started.
All right. So if you can just flip to the screen so I can like visually show you why, because verbally is good, but I feel like visually doing it is good as well. So again, I'm saying that the Y chromosome G is Japheth, only because it originated in like places like Neolithic Anatolia and things of that nature. So let me just skip on through what I have. And it is mostly seen in like European peoples.
Hold on. So are you saying the G is your wait a minute? What are you saying that the G is? Help me understand, because I am not privy on this. So what are you saying G is? Help me understand.
So basically what I'm saying is that G is mostly found in people of the Caucasus regions like Georgians, and it tends to be seen in, like, as you can see on the map, its highest distribution is in the Caucasus regions on the west, which is where Georgia is. And basically what I'm saying is that it originated with Georgian peoples, like haplogroup UNB1A originates with Niger-Congo peoples. Like if you do a lot of deep studying with G, this mutation exists in like 90% to 5% non-Africans.
So are you saying that anybody with a G haplotype is of European descent?
I'm saying that anyone with G, that, for instance, I'm saying that if you have G, you more than likely can probably trace your line back to some man, some Caucasian man that had G. For instance, let me show you this. In South Africa, 2011 study in South Africa said that no G was found in Africans or in Bantu, but 1.7% was found in white Afrikaners. In the United States, haplogroup G is found in 4% of Europeans, only 1% in Afro-Americans. Most Afro-Americans have haplogroup UNB1A. This is what I'm trying to tell people. And the reason why that Teo have haplogroup is because of this. You know, most of the people in the transatlantic slave trade, most Africans have haplogroup either A, B, or E. But we know that some bad history happened, and we found out that about 65% of African American males have a Y chromosome traced back to Africa. But what about the other percent? The other percent trace their lineage back to Europe, to Europeans. Like in this study, it talks about how a whopping 35% of all African American males descend from a white male ancestor because of slavery and rape and all that. You know, we can't say that.
Okay, so the Chadians
that we're not going to have their haplogroup if they're raping.
So the Chadians are R01, and R1B is known to be in Europe, right? But the Chadians of Africa, all those black folks are R1. Okay, yes, so you're saying that those Chadians got white DNA? Well, when science has said that mankind originated in Africa and that even G originated in Africa and went into the Levant. So I'm trying to understand, are you saying the Chadians have race mixing or rape or whatever, and the Chadians got R01 because of that, when they're all the Chadians, I don't think have a history of being colonized, but they might have been colonized, but not raped and oppressed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's a good question. So the Chadians have, I studied the Chadians actually, they're a very interesting group. The Chadians have haplogroup RV88. What's interesting about that haplogroup is that it's believed that Eurasians that carried that haplogroup did actually admix with Chadians. You have to look into their history. Like there's a lot of studies that go into the fact that Eurasians RV, and type this in, everyone in the chat, look into this. Like, don't just take my word for it. Don't just take their word for it. Look it up and see what happened as to how R got in.
So do you understand the language you just used? It is believed, right? That's not scientific fact, right? This is the language they use. Yeah. That's my point. This is the language they use, right? Hypothesis, maybe, possible, probability. Okay, this is the language they use in the haplogroup world. So I'm saying, are you saying this is no? So you said believe. I'm saying this is the language they use. Are you saying it's definitive? And if it's definitive, I like to see that.
It is definitive. Actually, let me explain how and why y'all have
the evidence.
G. Yes, I have. Yes, I have evidence.
Right,
So let me explain why y'all
Put it on the screen then.
Well, let me ask. Okay, go ahead. Never mind. Go ahead.
Okay. Y'all have haplogroup G. All right. So you might be wondering why. So let me explain. So let's say you have a black woman. Let me make this bigger. Let's say, oh man, sorry about that. Can y'all see? Is the screen big, sister? So let's say y'all have.
Yeah, the screen is big.
All right. So let's say you have a black woman, and she sleeps with a white man. Her mitochondrial haplogroup is L. White man is G. That white man will have a mixed son who will also have G. The autosomal DNA will be both African and European. Now this mixed man gets with a black woman, and the child will have 75% African and 25% European, but will still carry his father's G from his grandfather. This is how you can explain haplogroup G is in your DNA, and you still have a good amount of African DNA.
Okay.
Yeah, but my
on the screen R, then R, then R, then R.
Let me ask you a question. So according to the scientists, there's two things that can affect your haplogroup, right? It's the machines that you're using, right? The machine that you're using, okay, or just a straight up mistake. Now, I've seen people who have went to different geneticists and got 3 different haplogroups. Now,
can you show me that?
Yeah, we'll bring it up. But my point being is haplogroups are not scientifically used to determine who a people group is. And Sister E, I want to share something because he said something about haplogroup G being from Europe. Can I share my screen?
Please.
Good luck proving the 22 chromosome to 1.
I said we can use both. I'm not doubting y'all on autosomal. I mean, geez, come on. I said use both.
Look, you no, bro, you can't dodge it. Autosomal. Look, hold on. Autosomal and haplogroup. You're making the case how important haplogroup is to identify a group of people. We're showing you that we got people who got different haplogroups and got the same genetic autosomal match. I need you to explain that, man. I'm sorry. We all need you to explain that, and we don't want a history lesson on genetic 101. We need evidence.
In order to build, you have to
no, this is science. You don't have to build nothing. I want the hard facts. Show me show me the chromosomes and the alleles and the subtypes and show me how that works.
All right, okay. Jeez. All right. So you want to know why I think that's important. All right, so tell me this. Are Pygmies Israelites, or Nilots Israelites, or Khoisan Israelites?
Genotypes. I want to see subclade, chromosomes.
Let me finish. Are Nilots, Pygmies, and Khoisans descendant of Hebrews? Now, we can actually distinguish all these groups, but the question is, how would a Pygmy in the Congo DNA be, or a Nilot in East Africa, or a Khoisan in Tanzania? If they're living in the lands of where the Israelites were scattered to, how will we distinguish them? Well, I use haplogroups because haplogroup E is generally believed to have originated in Eastern Africa, where Israel is. Haplogroup A and haplogroup B tends to be in Pygmy peoples and Khoisans. It's even in the Upper Nile, and I believe that these groups are Hamites. Khoisan have up to 70% of haplogroup A. And here's the map of haplogroup A. And these are haplogroup A peoples. These are Hamites, in my opinion. And then there's B, which is mostly in Pygmies. Pygmies and Bankas and Mbatwi have haplogroup B. Here's a map of haplogroup B. We can distinguish these groups using haplogroups because sometimes autosomal DNA can mix these groups up. I believe that the true Africans are haplogroup A and B, as you can see on the screen, and the Afro-Mediterraneans, which have been people around here, are haplogroup E.
Okay, so
actually dominated Africa at one point until the Bantu expansion, which pushed a lot of these A and B people southward. And so, yeah, that's just another reason why I use haplogroups, because we can distinguish these groups, because the pygmy in the Congo is going to have a similar autosomal DNA. So how do you get down to the nitty-gritty? So basically, this paper is saying that we found very ancient clades of haplogroup E-M96, and that it's likely that DE either originated outside of Africa in the Arabian Peninsula and migrated in, or that it originated close in Africa and came out but back into Africa, basically like a back to Africa migration. But it seems to imply that Arabia was where E and DE originated from. Here's another paper as well. It says the split of the Y chromosomes composites DE haplogroup is very similar to the age of MT DNA L3. And Eurasian origin and back migration to Africa has been proposed for the African Y chromosome haplogroup E. This correlation rather seems to be the result of a joint and global replacement of old autochthonous males. Autochthonous males, indigenous males, and female African lineages by new Eurasian incomers. Basically, they're saying that E is likely a Eurasian new incomer that came into Africa, and that they really replaced the indigenous African population. And we'll get into them a bit later on. And still going on with this same particular paper, it says, curiously, ancestral E star, which means the most ancient form, ancestral E lineages have been detected in the Arabian Peninsula and in the Levant. So biologically, some Semites are, just going back to sum all this together, it seems to be that E could have likely originated in the Arabian Peninsula, which is interesting because this is also where Semites may have also originated from, if of course those two anthropologists are correct about Semites coming from the Arabian Peninsula. But anyways.
Yo, SUC in the building, man. You back? Yo, man, shout out to Sourced Up Click, man. Scholastic Bully. What's going on, brother?
7 Gang. Y'all already know what's up, man. Source Gang. What we do here is special, because in this community, we surrounded by nothing but rhetoric. A sea of rhetoric and keyboard warriors. So we that diamond in the rough. You know what I'm saying? And we got the argument king today, swinging and banging all the way from the land of Canaan. My brother James gonna present y'all with flames. You know what I'm saying? So hey, I'm excited. I'm ready to see this. I know he gonna bring the fire, bro. Let's get it.
That's right, man. Without further ado, man, we turn everything over to our brother, James Cassel.
All right, man. Let me share my screen real quick. And while I do that, first I want to give all praises to the Most High. You know what I'm saying? I want to thank the CEO and our champ for allowing me to come on here and do this presentation right here, man. You know, I wanted to do something special for the source, a topic that I know is talked about a lot in the community. You know what I'm saying? And that's who is Japheth, man? Because a lot of people argue, you know what I'm saying, that the white man is Japheth. Some argue the white man ain't Japheth. So I want to put together a little presentation and show y'all what I've been getting from my studies. All right. So the intro, like I said, but the main thing I want to emphasize in my intro is in the second paragraph. They're using the last glacial maxim as the infamous flood of Noah kept in the oral traditions or the memory of the oral memory of the Israelites. The reason I say that is because I'm bringing this from a secular perspective. So if I'm going to bring it from a secular perspective, I have to also approach the biblical text from a secular perspective. And from a secular perspective, especially Genesis, is an oral tradition, and it's part of the oral memory, which means it was some dramatic event that took place in the history of the people that they kept and recorded. So that being Noah's flood, we go around the world looking, almost every culture that ever exists, they got a flood story, So I think that pointed to a real event that took place. So what I had to do was look through the archaeological record and see, was there any global climatic event involving water where it pretty much was a bottleneck to a lot of human and animal life, and then I found that was the last glacial period. And the last glacial maximum is more towards the end of that period. But I believe that period is what they're talking about with the great flood of Noah, if I'm going to bring it from a secular perspective. Another thing I want to point out is that the reason I come at it from this approach is because I personally don't use exact dating. So what I use is relative dating. So I look at the archaeological record for the sequence order of events. So what I do is I take that and I compare it to what the oral tradition of my ancestors is. And then when I mash that together, that's going to be what I present here. But pretty much using that as the marker for the flood period. The next thing I wanted to do was look to the area where Genesis 10 says they migrated to, which we all know that was Europe, Russia, and all that region there. So the next thing to do, obviously, was to, go through the fossil record and see what we find. But right here it says, we build a model to address the traditions of our ancestors and find where it coincides with the archaeological record. Then we update our model to reflect the modern sciences based on the findings. Using the table of nations in combination with the genetic data, we see if we can identify a common ancestral Y chromosome origin of these people who were the first to settle in these regions in accordance with the findings of modern science. Why take this approach? I pretty much told y'all that, why I use the lab and all that. Also, something to point out, I personally take the stance that the quote unquote sons of the gods were other types of archaic humans like Neanderthals and Denisovians, and they also died off due to this glacial period. So that also coincides with, only one lineage surviving this flood, one Y chromosome lineage. All right, right here, this is just a basic phylogenetic tree so everybody can see. All right, you got AB over here, which I'll give it away now. I believe that's dealing with Ham. You have DE, which, as you can see right here, they have it also with the out of Africa branch because they were having difficulties trying to figure out where did DE arise at. But when I do the presentation on the House of Shem, which deals with the area in which DE arose in, is going to expound on that a whole lot. And then over here, you see we have, which DE is here, we have CF right here with the C branch and the F branch, which we had a haplogroup who went back to C. We have one that go back to F. So we can see it's CF clearly, but I want to show the whole tree so you can get a real good concept. See, look how big Japheth lineage is. It goes from here all the way over here to the end. So Yah really did enlarge Japheth. But as you can see right here, this is the P1 with the R and the Q down here. And we can move up and we can get up to the K, IJK, H, IJK, so on and so forth. And we get back to CF. So I think that the evidence, because I didn't really want this presentation to be long because I wanted it to the point. I think that the evidence all clearly points to CF being Japheth's Y chromosome. And so I think that anybody who wants to continue arguing, and I think this makes this clear, that J marker is a Shemitic marker, they need a reality check. All right. They need to really do their research and come up with some good cohesive models to show and prove what they saying.
Right.
Because the model I'm laying out right here, right now, based on my approach to it, it's foolproof, bro. All those bodies or male bodies that we find that we can get DNA from show and prove that the first people to settle in that region, which would be the sons of Japheth, all descend from haplogroup CF, which includes, again, the J marker. So don't be trying to tell me Aaron is a son of Japheth, because I ain't buying it. All right?
Right.
And I'm just gonna end the presentation right here, and then I'm gonna save the rest of it for part 2, because I didn't even finish it out, because I was like, man, this probably gonna be 40 slides all by itself, just part 2, if I get to finishing it out, man, because there's so much information. But I just wanted to get this basic level understanding out to the people so it could be clear who the sons of Japheth are. And that ain't all Europeans, bro. That's only 1/3 of the people up in Europe actually descending from Japheth. So we got to get some understanding on who them other people are. And we're going to see about that in some of the later presentations I do when I do them on DE and AB.
Yeah, man. Powerful.
And I want that to be clear, because I get tired of people trying to convince me that this J marker, you know what I'm saying, comes from Shem.
Right.
It's not gonna work no more, man.
Yeah.
Like I said, let me say this one more point. I'm gonna hand it right to you, because like I said, I wanted to do this so we can lay the foundation for our models, man.
Yeah.
Of where we get our understanding from, and how our understanding does coincide with scriptures and the secular if you remove time and then put relative dating, just using the order of events in the record. Go ahead, Sue.
No, I was just saying, yeah, you hear that, G-Con? Okay, Malone, you fake Christians out there, you know what I'm saying? Because y'all be invoking that. Garfield be invoking that as well. That J haplogroup, man. Hey, man, what we learning with the DNA, and you know, this was a powerful presentation, James. When we start going into these things, it solidifies our models even more, like the brother said. And this is why Garfield and these other people are angry, because they can't just cast this away to the side as if it's not just an interpretation now. There's something solid to reference.
Yep, you can stand on this. Be like, look, this is what the science say. You know what I'm saying? If I take the Bible and look at it the way the scientists say to look at it, you know, from their secular perspective, it's saying the same damn thing.
Right.
Only difference is time.